So next up, we've got a session on programmatic out of home from our premium sponsor, Vistar Media, newly rebranded, and it looks great. So yeah, Karan, if you would like to take it away, please.
Hi everyone. So Karan Singh here, the real version, not current AI. Although I love the concept of being able to do this presentation while sat on my sofa and having a digital version of myself one day. That's the dream. So, like I said, joined as our general manager of the UK for Vistar Media, and wanted to kind of explore a question with you guys really, which is, can programmatic put creativity back at the heart of out of home? And the truth is, it's a question that I asked myself coming into the business. So I'm 2 months into my career in programmatic out of home, having a programmatic background in more of the display and CTV world. And really kind of what I wanted to understand was, how can a channel that is born through creativity, one of the biggest and best canvases that we've got as marketers, really kind of be enhanced by programmatic in a way that maybe we've not thought about it before? And really kind of exploring this question helped me in that journey. And I think it created some inspiration for me in terms of what can be achieved via out of home and programmatic out of home more specifically. So my one and only plug in terms of the company, because you may or may not have heard of us, is we are Vistar Media, newly rebranded, as Kat has alluded to, and as the home of out of home, or the programmatic marketplace for both media buyers and media owners to transact seamlessly within this channel. So when I, like most of us in this room, get a new job and we speak to friends and family and they ask you, what do you do? I often leave the programmatic bit of advertising out of that equation. It creates too much confusion, and generally it gets me back to a really simple question that I like to ask, or in fact kind of be asked, which is, what's your favorite ad? I think the purity of the question is really cool because, you know, we get quite deep into the granularity of our jobs and what we do within advertising, but actually what was the reason we joined in the first place? And it was down to the ads and the fondness of the ads that we remember. And a clear kind of trend when asking that question is that the ad is generally either a TV ad that people remember or an out-of-home ad which sticks in the memory. And I wanted to kind of revisit some recent examples around out-of-home activations that I think have been pretty creative for one or another reason, and how we can use those as inspiration. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this ad recently. So Specsavers, who really kind of masters at their craft, and I can see a lot of nodding heads, so there's definitely familiarity with this ad. You know, the consistency that Specsavers have with their "you should have gone to Specsavers" strapline and the activations they put behind it and the creativity is really second to none. This example is obviously having van parked on these electric bollards with a clear red sign saying no parking. And it's a really brilliant example of using out of home without necessarily the traditional method of buying out of home, which is obviously via a screen, but still leveraging the ability to speak to people when they're out and about on their daily commute or wherever they might be. The next example is seemingly what is an ad out of home on the Tube network for a mascara brand, or again on a building within London somewhere. And again, seemingly what we've got here is an activation that is designed to be shocking and designed to be shared and very much kind of grabbing the attention of whoever's kind of seeing this ad. Again, in what seemingly is a space which is, you know, very well covered when it comes to out of home, the transport network. And then perhaps most contentiously is this ad, which is a real ad for British Airways, if you've seen it around, which is got so much brand equity within their brand that they don't need to show the whole logo. It's creating inspiration by someone looking out of the plane on their way to wherever they're going. And again, seemingly next to that ad is EasyJet, who've done a similar thing with their logo, with a strapline, same view, half the price. So again, designed to create inspiration around that attention-grabbing nature of out of home and what it can deliver for us as marketers. So what's the problem when we go back to our first question, right? What's the fuss? If we're doing all this creative stuff within the channel, why would we leverage programmatic to enhance that? What's the issue with what we've just seen? And I think there's inherent limitations with the 3 examples that I've shown you there. The first one around Specsavers is, for me, around scalability. So it's designed to create shock factor. You can't put vans all across the country 365 days a year without pissing a lot of people off, right? And so for me, that shock value is designed to be occasional, it's designed to be attention grabbing, and designed to be shared once someone's seen that advert. The second 2 ads never took place at all, as I'm sure you might have guessed. So the EasyJet activation is something that was shared on LinkedIn, but actually was in this realm of faux ads, which if you've seen what Gymbox have been doing recently, they've really kind of leaned into this. And same with the kind of mascara brand, who did not put a massive mascara brush on a building in London. So what they were essentially doing is leveraging the out-of-home canvas, which can be so creative, but actually they're social media campaigns. So they're designed to go viral on social channels. And more so than that, I saw a lot of nodding heads in the room when I showed the kind of second 2 ads. It's largely marketing for marketers. So it's actually people in this room, and we are consumers, but not necessarily the consumers that are going for that pick up these ads because they get shared on things like LinkedIn rather than elsewhere. And how do we take inspiration from that and move from a viral moment or an attention-grabbing point in time to moments? How do we make it scalable? And the obvious answer for that is not programmatic, unfortunately, despite coming from that background. When we think about programmatic, we don't necessarily associate that with being able to enhance creativity. When we talk about programmatic, and anyone who's kind of worked within programmatic, the first thing that comes to mind is things like specific channel activation around display or CTV, retargeting, leveraging things like cookies or identifiers, click-through rates, last-click optimization, very hard performance metrics that have been used since the inception of programmatic to drive that concept forward. But what we failed to do, especially from us within the programmatic space, is explore how programmatic can be an enabler of creativity and what it can drive when we move it away from just these things on the slide. For me, creativity can be all of these things. It's flexible and reactive. Reactive meaning it can do things in real time. We forget about the real-time element of programmatic often, but the triggers that can take place, and we'll go through some examples of what that can look like in terms of creative activation, can really enhance this channel. And the flexibility to flip in and change locations or creative is something where programmatic really comes to the forefront. A combination of data and context, data in a non-intrusive fashion in an environment which is in a one-to-many space, can be really powerful when packaged up with the right creative. Automation, which is essentially what programmatic is, and what programmatic means is to automate, allows us to be scalable, to do things more and move from moment to moment. And the dynamism we get within the creative allows us to create those kind of like wow moments for consumers, put creativity at the heart of what we're doing, by changing things often. So for me, creativity or programmatic can really be the linchpin between technology and creativity when done correctly. And what we wanted to do is use the inspiration that we've got from some of the ads that did or did not happen at the start, but also through some of the things that we've done as a business or proposed for clients that I think really highlight the effectiveness of the channel and what can be achieved. So the first example that we had run for Heineken, and actually took place in the Netherlands, but we translated it for the London audience, was flipping the concept of out-of-home ads or social ads leveraging out-of-home, and flipping that concept on its head, and actually using social as a creative tool within out-of-home. Now, if we cast our minds back to lockdown, and if anyone's like me, I was absolutely gasping for a beer by about day 3. on the 2-year lockdown or however long we went for, one of the things that Heineken did was leverage that and have a countdown clock on some of these bus shelters where it had a countdown to when the pubs were opening. So this one said 3 days till your first beer, leveraging that hashtag, the first beer. They used location to find what the nearest place is to get Heineken, so the nearest pub that served that beer to you. So linking the brand to an establishment where you could actually make that purchase. And then leveraging user-generated content. So actually, people who are having their first beer, able to post that and actually see it in real time on a billboard near them was, again, really attention-grabbing, but a really creative use of the channel. And if we think about that point in time where everyone was so used to relying on social channels, actually leveraging that out of home when things did open up was a nice kind of transition back out into the real world. Another example that we had in the UK was for Rituals, who leveraged a trigger in essentially UV rays. So having the UV index in a certain location and upweighting their creative on the back of that. So for their sun care products, when the UV range was at a certain point, upweighting the amount they were visible in that particular location, but also providing consumers with something that was informative, creating a need on the spot for the product, and then having that brand associated with it was a really good way of being creative, being targeted, and also being efficient with their media spend. The example I was less thrilled about standing in front of today is this proposal that we did in the US for a brand called Ollie. And it's around kind of supplements for your libido and having that in a proximity to where you could purchase that advert. And I purposefully used this example for the reason that it's creative, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, it's informative, but it's an example of where out-of-home and programmatic out-of-home can lend itself to things like sensitive categories. If we think about programmatic and how it's linked to targeting, on a smaller screen, something like this might cut a bit tight to the bone in terms of how sensitive it is. When you take that out of home and you target it towards a location, you can still grab the attention, you can still be creative, but for sensitive subjects, it can work really, really well. And this is just one example, and it can work for other brands that sit within this category and have similar challenges, but a great way of leveraging the format. And lastly, clearly this event hasn't happened yet, but just to get us thinking and inspired about what we can do in the art of the possible, big events like the Paris Olympics that are upcoming or the Euros or whatever it may be can be leveraged within the out-of-home format via programmatic. So if we take an API to a live event and we think about things like the medal count, who's winning gold medals at a certain time, or the scores in a certain sporting event, we can leverage that to trigger certain creative in certain locations. If we think back to the 2012 London Olympics, when an athlete won a gold medal, I remember Sir Mo Farah won a gold medal, and then a gold postbox went up in Hounslow, which is his kind of hometown. We could leverage something like that within programmatic out of home. And if someone from a particular location wins a gold medal, all those screens could go gold, or there could be a particular message for that athlete in that location. So again, piggybacking on the fact of an event that's happening in real time, not waiting for a postbox to be painted, but also linking your brand to that particular event. So just food for thought in terms of what can be achieved via programmatic, the art of the possible, and to help us move away from doing those kind of more static activations within the space. So how do we do that? How do we kind of land this? And I think it's, for me, a partnership between brands, agencies, and specialists who have to work in harmony to bring this stuff to life. If we think of the examples that have happened, it's the brand who have that consistency of message, who live and breathe the brand, who brief well and are looking for innovative ways to take their brand to market. Working with agencies and activation partners who understand that and are able to translate that and have a good view of the tech landscape or the channel landscape to be able to take that to market and do cool stuff. And then specialists who live and breathe this channel. So out of home at Vistar is all we do. We have examples from around the globe, and we're able to leverage that for our clients. Working with partners and picking their brains to understand, again, the art of the possible there is really crucial. And so to wrap up, when we go back to the question that I asked myself before joining the business, can programmatic put creativity back at the heart of out of home? The answer for me was a resounding yes, if we get the partnerships right and we're willing to lean in and go on that journey. And we'd love to do that with you, and would implore you to kind of ask questions of your partners to make that happen. Thank you.